Capital of the world in Lower Manhattan, the New York Stock Exchange. This is Squawk on the Street. Good morning, everybody. I'm Mark Haynes on the floor of the exchange. We are just 80 points away from Dow 12,400. The market in a festive mood. The futures are kind of neutral. We'll see how it all plays out. I'm joined by Melissa.
Hi there, Mark. I'm Melissa Lee. Gold futures sitting at just about $630 an ounce. We'll have predictions on where the prices for precious metals are heading later on this hour.
And I'm David Faber. Kirk Kerkorian's Trescinda is buying more MGM, but is it selling GM? I'll have that story. Melissa.
Well, David, in the headlines as we head toward this opening bell on this Wednesday, this holiday shortened week, we're certainly watching shares of Dell. They are spiking this morning up nearly 10% after coming out with earnings yesterday after the close that came in 6 cents ahead of expectations. Dell does remain cautious that these results could change because of an SEC accounting probe, but analysts this morning very positive on the stock. The stock, in fact, getting an upgrade from Bear Stearns. We'll have all the details straight ahead. Also, data-wise, the number of mortgage applications coming in nearly 4% lower for last week. We also got weekly jobless claims a day early. They were up by just about 12,000. And we are watching Dow component Alcoa planning to cut some 6,700 jobs that could save the aluminum giant $125 million a year. All this has got futures looking like a positive open for Wall Street. The Dow, the Nasdaq, as well as the S&P futures all slightly above fair value. Let's take a check on how all of this morning news is hitting the pre-markets. We start off with Bob Pisani, who's right here at the New York Stock Exchange. He's standing by post 11R where J. Crew trades. Good morning, Bob.
And believe it or not, there's a lot of news out here, particularly in the retail area, including J. Crew, which will be busy this morning. They went public this year. That was one of the more successful IPOs we've seen. They beat their estimates and they raised their guidance for the full year. J. Crew up about 7% in the pre-open here. Payless Shoe Store, also pretty good news. They beat expectations. Payless, you know, is the largest shoe retailer in North America. Payless up about 4% in the pre-open. Not such great news over at Bookseller. Borders, different situation. They had a big loss, but that loss was on the expected side. Guidance unchanged, but still at the low end of analyst expectations. Not much trading in Borders here. Trescinda, you heard earlier, offering $55 a share for MGM. That's a tender offer, but it's a limited tender offer. They're looking to increase the ownership about 5% from 56% to 61.7%. That's 15 million shares. MGM up about 10% to almost $54. That is a new high for them. Another restructuring at Alcoa, cutting their global workforce by 10% there, 13,000 jobs. They're exiting their soft alloy business. And finally, the New York Times rejecting a proposal by a group of businessmen, including former General Electric boss Jack Welch, to buy the Boston Globe. Finally, Freeport-McMoRan wants to buy Phelps Dodge. Credit Suisse says iron ore giant BHP might be more interested in buying that particular deal, Freeport-McMoRan. Mary Thompson's over at the NASDAQ. Mary?
Thank you, Bob. We're expecting a higher open. The pre-market indicator is up 9 points this morning, of course, suggesting strength at the open. And the big reason for that is Dell, which is up 9.7% in the pre-market following yesterday's after the bell earnings report. The company's fiscal third quarter earnings were ahead of expectations. However, Dell did warn that there might have to be a restatement in part because the firm continues with its internal investigation into its accounting, and then there are, of course, federal probes into its accounting as well. Earnings came in at 30 cents a share, above estimates of 24 cents a share. Revenue was $14.4 billion, in line with estimates, thanks to strong sales of some higher margin products. Other stocks we're watching, Comcast, unchanged in the pre-market. The company has inked a deal with Disney through which it's going to be offering some of Disney's ABC programming through video on demand. Also, Comcast is buying Disney's 39.5% stake in the E! Network for over $1 billion. Lastly, Brocade up 8% on the news of better than expected earnings. Analysts were looking for 12 cents a share. The software company reported 14 cents a share. Now let's head to Sharon Epperson at the NYMEX.
Well, Mary, crude prices are drifting lower in London and here in the United States as traders wait for that weekly gauge on domestic oil.
Keynes, Melissa Lee. Thank you very much, Rick Santelli. Let's check the overseas market for you. In Europe, the Financial Times CNBC Global 300 up about 12.5. The CAC 40 up about 3.5. And in Germany, the ZEPFR DAX up about 12 and change. Asian markets ended up over 1% overnight. Japan's Nikkei at 15,914. The Hong Kong Hang Seng finishing at 19,250. Joining me down here on the floor, Stephen Popora, the day before Thanksgiving. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Mark. Happy
So,
Thanksgiving.
how are we going to play out here? Usually, I think it's something like 80% of the time, day before a holiday is an up day.
That's an interesting statistic.
Yeah.
I just learned something
Yeah.
right now. It looks like an up day. I think the market likes the Dell earnings. We got consumer sentiment coming in at, I guess, 10 o'clock. That's going to be pretty interesting.
Market like Dell earnings?
I think the market loved Dell earnings. Yeah, I think the futures were sort of mixed. They all swung to the upside. So, I mean, and it's been the trend. It's been a good earnings season, and particularly for the techs.
All right, we're going into the holiday season. What are we going to be watching? Fed speak, data, what?
Well, you know what? I think that the Fed speak is going to depend on the data that we get. The data's been mixed. The inflation data seems okay. You know, we've had factory levels decrease. We have employment tight, yet the economy appears to be slowing down. So I think the Fed seems to be in check. I don't think a lot of people, the bond market doesn't seem to be worried about that. I think that the market I think we're going to be looking at the technical aspects of this market. Everybody's looking for some sort of correction here. We haven't really had one. Market appears to be overbought, but boy, it's awfully strong, and the leaders are strong. So I think a lot of people are going to be watching the technicals of this market.
All right, fair enough. Stephen, have a great holiday.
You too. Happy
Stephen
Thanksgiving.
Popora. Let's find Melissa.
Hi there, Mark. For the buzz on the trading floor to the buzz well beyond. Let's get the pre-market instant analysis with Jerry Castellini. He's the CIO of Castle Ark Asset Management. He joins us this morning from Chicago. Jerry, you too.
See you, Jerry. All right, the brain is back, and he's got the latest on Tricinda's bet on MGM.
That's right. Plus, is now the time to be meddling in metals, and why one market watcher thinks stocks are a bit overextended. And can you learn a thing or two about investing by looking around your child's room? We are just getting started here for a pre-Thanksgiving Day edition of Squawk on the Street, live from the New York Stock Exchange.
Ice.
Welcome back to Squawk on the Street. I'm David Faber. Shares of
Exploring the markets for profitable stocks, look no further than your child's toy chest. Squawk on the Street on CNBC. First in business worldwide. Coming right back.
You're watching CNBC's Squawk on the Street, live from the financial capital of the world.
Consumer sentiment coming out. Just on the other side of the break here on CNBC Squawk on the Street. We are live from the New York Stock Exchange.
You're watching Squawk on the Street on CNBC. First in business worldwide.
Fourth, the game will change, and so will the way you win it. The all-new CNBC.com, sponsored by TD Ameritrade. You choose.
You're watching CNBC Squawk on the Street, live from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. We're back. I'm Mark Haynes, along with Melissa Lee. There goes the opening bell. At the big board, Emergent Biosolutions, celebrating its recent IPO at the NYSE, ticker EBF. And at the NASDAQ, Mrs. America, Diane Tucker, ringing the opening bell. Melissa, I'm sure you aspire to that title someday.
I would have to be married first, and I would have to look good in a swimsuit second. But yes, absolutely. Well, our market reporters are standing by at the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, as well as the Merck. But we start off here with our very own Bob Pisani, who's standing near the post where J. Crew trades 11R. Hi, Bob.
I'm standing in front of J. Crew here. Here's the whole crowd in front of J. Crew. It's 36 to 39 are the indications. Went down at $35.35. You know, they went public this year, one of the more successful IPOs. They beat the estimates and they raised the guidance for the full year. So we're going to have a nice pop up here for J. Crew. Also, Payless should be up as well. They beat expectations as well. You know, they're the largest shoe retailer in North America. They were up about 4% in the pre-open. And are they open yet? They're just open here, up 7%, Payless shoes. So not as good news for Borders Books, though. They came out, they had a big loss, but that was roughly what they expected overall here. Guidance unchanged, but at the low end of analyst expectations. Borders down 0.5%. Of course, MGM, you heard David talking about MGM considering offering $55 a share in a tender offer. They want to increase their ownership 5% from 56% to 61.7%. Just open up 8% here at $53. That is a new high. Now remember, of course, this has got all the other casinos going at this point. So Harrah's is up, pre-open, Station Casino, Las Vegas Sands. Wynn trades just around the corner here. Wynn was also up in the pre-open. Let me try to get over there. At the same time, General Motors, which of course Tresendo owns a significant share of, is down again here in the pre-open, down about 20 cents to $32.40. Volume in General Motors was roughly 3 times normal yesterday and also the day before. Not quite 3 times normal, but still very strong to the downside. Let's talk a little bit about the restructure from Alcoa. They're cutting their global workforce by 10%, 13,000 jobs. They're exiting the soft alloy business. This is one of many restructurings Alcoa has announced over the years. They're open up 2.5% here. Let's go over to Mary standing by at the NASDAQ.
Thank you very much, Bob. A higher open here at the NASDAQ, thanks in part to yesterday's after the bell earnings from Dell. Keep in mind those numbers were delayed, but they were better than expected. And as a result, Dell is up 10%. In early trade, the company earned 30 cents a share in the fiscal third quarter. That is ahead of analyst estimates of 24 cents a share. The company warned, though, keep in mind there might be a restatement because of its own ongoing internal investigation into the firm's accounting, as well as investigations by the SEC and the Justice Department, too. Google yesterday finishing above the $500 mark for the first time ever, extending those gains today, up 0.5% or 250 at $512.19. Keep in mind this stock trading at 6 times its IPO price of $85 a share. That happened, of course, in August of 2004. IAC Interactive is up 4.3%. It will be added to the S&P 500 on November 30th, so getting a lift from that news. And also Cray Supercomputers. This company is up over 32% or $3. The reason being it's won a contract from the Pentagon to help develop a supercomputer worth $250 million. Big news for a company whose revenue is only $201 million. Now let's head to Sharon Epperson at the NYMEX. Sharon?
Well, Mary, we're seeing energy prices slightly lowered across the board today. Crude prices are still hovering around $60 a barrel after gaining about 2% yesterday. We also are seeing gas.
The MBA group since January and well below its 626 year ago level. Hey, housing sure isn't going to be hurt by some of these low interest rates. Now to the New York Stock Exchange, Melissa Lee.
Thank you very much, Rick Santelli. And we've got a lot of stocks, even though it's going to be thin volume expected today. Got a lot of stocks to watch. And of course, this week, Mark, as you know, there's been a lot of M&A buzz. And certainly there's a lot of buzz about potential takeover targets. Today, specifically, we are watching shares of ServiceMaster, ticker SVM, named in the Wall Street Journal as a potential private equity takeout target. That there are a lot of firms circling this company. According to the Journal, it is, of course, a provider of lawn care, repair, as well as pest control services. There are some other potential targets named in this article, home builders, including D.R. Horton, as well as Ryland. And another potential target is actually an acquirer earlier this week, Freeport-McMoRan. Can you believe that?
Blows my mind. I mean, Freeport-Mac just bought or just made an offer for Phelps Dodge.
$26 billion offer.
And now they themselves might get it. It's like a Shark Tank.
Well, Credit Suisse today is saying that BHP Billiton could, in fact, make a bid for Freeport-McMoRan, although CS does say that BHP may have trouble convincing shareholders that a Freeport-McMoRan deal makes sense versus, say, increasing its buyback program, which, of course, would add immediately to shareholder value. We're also watching shares of British Airways. We told you about that story about private equity firms, Macquarie and Texas Pacific, proposing to buy Qantas for $8.5 billion, including debt. Of course, this bid comes comes just after U.S. Airways offered to take out Delta, and now British Airways shares are rising because there is a thought that because of all of this consolidation in the airline sector, that potentially British Airways could be the next takeout target. So we are watching those shares as well. They were up in London trade. We'll see how the ADRs do here at the New York Stock Exchange. And quickly take a look at Smurfit Stone getting a downgrade from CS First Boston, I should say Credit Suisse, downgraded to a neutral from an outperform. Price target cut to $12 a share, 2007. Estimates getting cut. The analysts there saying that they are essentially giving up on potential price hikes to offset the rise in cost of containerboard.
All right, still to come, the Elmo effect.
Are you going to do your imitation of the tickle?
No, I am not. I grant you my level of dignity is not that high, but it's high enough.
He does a mean imitation. We'll be talking to a toy analyst right after this break about the picks and pans for this holiday season.
Viewers know there's only one leader in business news, and it's CNBC. One place for the most trusted names in business news.
We're live on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, where the futures have been holding pretty steady.
Up 100 points right now.
We have stocks turning around, heading into the final hour of trading. Market rallying again.
One source for unparalleled access to the business world.
I've never told any reporter this before, but you're breaking news now.
Do you think most Americans feel better off today than they did when you first took office?
One location for the insight you need to beat the street.
We've got a huge market here. Dow 12,000.
If I don't watch your show every day,
right,
that's like giving money away.
Is this option on the table?
Worth a couple $1 billion, one of the richest guys in the world. Do you ever go, why me?
One network has it all.
Investors don't seem to know what to do. I don't know what to do.
Good, I do. You came to the right guy.
CNBC. First in business, worldwide.